Chapter 62. Laura lay on the white padded floor, her very creation. The fabric of the straitjacket which bound her arms was her creation. The locked door and steel cuffs securing her ankles were her creation. The guards who put her here were her creation. Even the vinyl smell of the textured cushions was her creation. She was imprisoning and punishing herself. This was based on her beliefs and feelings, those that fed her actions, those that contained her values, those that her subconscious needed to resolve, all mingled to create this world she now lived within. Perhaps subconsciously, she felt trapped in her job. It had indeed turned into something she hated and desired to undo. This was a logical explanation for the confinement here she created. She was working to change her employment, though. I'm no longer ensnarled in Project X, she told herself. I'm working to sabotage the entire immoral project. Imagining the fabric of the jacket tearing, splitting, disintegrating, she opened her eyes only to see it completely intact. Maybe it was more complex than simply her job. She grew up feeling trapped with her alcoholic father as well. Her mother had died after giving birth to Laura due to complications of hemorrhaging. With no other family for her father to turn to, with no one else for Laura to turn to for support, his addiction imprisoned her. She was held firmly in the role of codependent, a replacement of her mother. Her love pinning her down, each attempt to take care of her father and ease his suffering from alcoholism only allowed him to continue in this disease without more consequence. Without more consequence, he wouldn't change. But how could she have behaved so differently? She was just a child. She grew up into his addiction. It was all she knew. And she loved him desperately. He was all she had left. She didn't want him to experience more pain and loss. He was already in too much misery. Through her love for him, she couldn't allow things to get worse. But they needed to get worse. As a young adult, going to Al-Anon meetings with her best friend Samantha, she learned that with addiction, things had to worsen before improving. Her father had to reach his bottom as an addict to grow and change. But some people's bottom was death. She couldn't have allowed her father to die from his addiction as a young girl. She could now, but not back then. She had no choice now, she realized. It was his decision. She couldn't control him. She had already tried for 20 years and failed. Though she still felt guilty for being unable to save him. Currently, at age 64, he was running towards death. His liver was diseased. Still drinking nightly, he hadn't yet found enough reason to stop. Would he ever? She spat at the floor of the padded cell. Curse this self-imposed prison. Ashley and Jeff were ready to receive help, unlike her father. She resented telling Donald the whole truth of Project X. Up front, losing his trust completely. She was glad having gone slower with Jeff, but lamented going too slow. He didn't know enough to keep safe at the hospital, nor to get the others out. She didn't blame Donald for distrusting her. The truth was overwhelming to accept all at once. Donald must be with the others by now. They needed her, though. Otherwise, before long, they would be placed back into this deep dream state without memory of the hospital. And then Laura would be forever removed from this world, replaced by another observer for Malik. If he had suspected her betrayal, he might have already instated someone else here. Abruptly, she wondered if Donald was sent by Malik. No, it couldn't be. Impossible. But Donald had tried to kill her, to send her out of this dream. That is exactly what an accomplice of Malik would attempt. Would Donald have followed her out if he had been successful and then reported back to Malik a confirmation of her betrayal? Maybe it had been a mistake killing Donald. He could be on his way to snitch on her this very moment. Or he could be foiling the attempts of the others from escaping. These thoughts she quickly dispelled. They were too devastating. It wasn't true. It couldn't be true. She couldn't have miscalculated the psychological nature of Donald. He was at the hospital now, helping Jeff, of course, and the girls. That was who he was. She had an itch on her cheek. She rubbed her face along the textured padding of the floor. It wasn't as satisfying as a fingernail, but it helped. She longed to be with Samantha. They used to find such solace in each other's company, just mingling at coffee shops around town after yoga. She missed those late nights when they talked and supported each other from relationships gone awry, eating smooth, rich, buttery pecan pie. But Samantha was far away. Donald wouldn't betray Jeff. He couldn't. She had to believe this. Laura stood up with some difficulty and looked into the camera. Her only connection to the outside. "Hello, I'm okay now. I won't hurt myself. I was just so stressed about being arrested. I'm okay now, though." She looked at the door, which also was thickly padded. It didn't open. "I won't fight. I've learned my lesson. I know what I did was wrong. I'm fine now." She could be locked in here for hours, days, maybe weeks. Utter defeat encumbered her. She fell to the floor. The only thing she could do was cry. It was the one true expression allowed. Anger and throwing herself against the walls would only extend her stay. She wished she could somehow talk with Jeff, tell him what he needed to do. She didn't care if she left this world so much anymore. She just wanted the others to be safe. Sitting in the Learjet, 30,000 feet in the air, Dan heard a ringing. The ring had a different quality and volume than his satellite phone, though. Across the aisle from him, Malik stole a glance at Dan. Rick was in the bathroom. Sam, Carl, and Johnny were talking to the pilot. The ringing came from Dan's inside jacket pocket, where he had placed the satellite phone confiscated from Malik's home. He retrieved it and pushed the green answer button, not saying a word, waiting for the caller to identify himself. The line remained silent. The Indian looked straight ahead, not seeming to be breathing anymore. More silence. Then the caller hung up. Dan looked for the caller identification, but a privacy feature evidently had been engaged. He took out his own phone, punched in Calvin's number, and asked him to get someone to locate the person who just called. "Who was that, Malik?" Dan asked sharply. The Indian man turned to the jet's window, focusing on the darkness.